Hi, and welcome to Something for the Weekend, brought to you as always by Together 2012. We're a community interest company based in Newham, led by disabled artists, and we're continuing to create a Paralympic cultural legacy for London 2012. I'm Ju Gosling, also known as the artist Ju90. With me, where she's been locked down for longer than we care to remember, is our chair, the artist and activist, Julie Newman. It's Holocaust Memorial Day today, so that's going to be a focus for the show, along with our usual items. But first, some more introductions and some audio description. We're going to go to the other end of our long virtual wheeled sofa first, and then come back to myself and Julie for some audio description.
Hello, and I'm Tracy Surgener, and yes, we're up in our West Midlands office in Sutton Coldfield. Behind us, we have red velvet curtains. Thank you, Robin. And today, I'll give a description of myself. I am styling a new, shorter haircut. I actually had a haircut for the first time in 3 years. Managed to find a mobile hairdresser. So I've got just past my shoulder length blonde hair, pale skin, and today I'm wearing a navy blue blouse you can't see it, with a nice high frilled neck with some frills on the sleeve, and it's covered in little birds, little white birds, like a bit like seagulls. And I'm wearing this because I am going out to stay in to pop down to Devon to watch the watercolour challenge, which is one of the programmes we recommended last week. So that's what I'm going to do. Thank you.
That sounds very lovely.
Thank you, Robin.
Oh, and I hello, I'm Robin Surgener, Business Director at Together 2012 and artist known as Angry Fish. Today I am sporting my increasingly shiny white hair over a pale face with blue-ish plastic glasses in front of blue eyes. Slightly husky voice today. I'm practicing for obviously one of my big parts in the future. Um, and I've just got on some green cargo pants, but more importantly, I am wearing a round neck black t-shirt with a big banner. I've worn this before, I know, but it's an Amnesty t-shirt that says "Protect the Human." Um, in obviously, firstly in honor of Holocaust Memorial Day, but also I'm going to go out to stay in to celebrate the launch of an album by an artist called Lee Oscar, who I will tell you a bit more about in the week ahead.
Thank you. I was reading about Lee Oscar yesterday and thinking how interesting. So I really look forward to you sharing more about it. Well, Julie and I think, and so she'll tell you a bit more about it, are dressed up to see the Winter Olympic curling begin and to support Team GB because it starts before the ceremony. But I'll leave that to Julie to tell you. So behind us, you can see a little bit of the famous Together 2012 graffiti banner, which has got pictures of all the different art forms we cover in the course of a year, from live music, drama, dance, cinema, spoken word, poetry. Oh, we've just got a comment from Renee Wallen. Tracy's new haircut looks lovely. We're always up for comments and compliments, particularly compliments on this show. Yes, Robin, yours looks lovely as well. I, on the other hand, going back to the audio description, have a self-styled hennaed corona crop under a knitted hat, another knitted hat from Alison Walker, which is in shades of pinks and blues with a sort of pinky blue, rather magnificent pom-pom. I'm a white woman with pale olive skin, green eyes behind black plastic glasses. I've got black plastic wrist braces, silver coloured jewellery, and a sort of indigo coloured Team GB Better Never Stops. Sorry, I was thinking, what does it say on my t shirt? And between us, behind us, you can just see Tony the teddy bear waiting to see if, for once, we might win the Clockwork Paralympics, which are coming up about halfway through the show. Before that, we've got art, we've got poetry, we've got craft, we've got join in with Tracy, join in with Sterre. But first, Julie.
Thank you. I also am dressed to go out to watch the curling. So I have a big, beautiful purple and blue knitted jumper on over a t-shirt with a Chinese style painting of a cat on a wave. I have a bubble hat. I don't know. I can't describe the colour of it, Ju.
I think it's a kind of lilac with pattern of pinks and purples, and then it's got a sort of red Angora pom-pom. I think it's rather magnificent.
It is
Thank
indeed,
you again,
very.
Alison.
And I have. I worked out that my hair length is the result of 103 weeks without being cut. So
But who's counting?
my gold and silver hair is currently 103 weeks long and just gently over my shoulders.
And we're being, well, the small tabby from the studio. Oh, she has successfully joined us. I suppose attempting to join us is the tabby known as Jinx, who's a sort of small, very traditional looking tabby with quite sharp claws, as I can testify, judging by the number of punctures in our knees, because they, yeah, anything like Zoom streaming, they just love it. But as I was saying at the beginning, it's the 27th of January, which, as always, is the International Holocaust Memorial Day. So we're going to be looking later in the week ahead at some of the activities that you might be able to join in or celebrate. But of course, today, and we should be celebrating because we have to celebrate survival. I think that's really important, and not just commemorate the dead, but listen to the survivors. At 7 o'clock tonight, online for the second year running, Julie and I think, first got involved when we went to a City Hall ceremony 2 years ago, and that's when we first met the Holocaust Memorial Day organisers and began to talk about, the very direct relevance for disabled people. But at 7 o'clock, there's going to be an online ceremony, and you're able to watch that, obviously, from anywhere in the world. At 6:45, if you want to log on early, they're going to be showing photographs from a youth photographic competition. So as artists, I think I'm definitely going to do that. But the link's going to be in there. And then at 8 o'clock, everybody is invited to put a light in their window. Now, that could be just as simple as putting the torch on your phone and sticking your phone in the window for sort of 15 minutes, half an hour. But lighting up the darkness is always a theme of Holocaust Memorial Day. I think there's something very moving about being able to share this with people all over the UK and people all over the world. And like I say, you've only just got to put your torch on your phone, put it in the window. We're not recommending, particularly at the moment, that anybody lights candles. But of course, if you've got one of those battery operated candles, that's a wonderful thing. You can just stick it in the window and leave it overnight. So that's about lighting up the darkness. Did you want to say something at this point, Julie?
Yeah, apparently, if you go onto the Holocaust Memorial site, the UK one, there's an opportunity to share a picture of your candle in the window that you put in for 8 o'clock. And the idea, I think, is that they use the photos that we all provide to demonstrate lighting up the darkness. Also, if you go onto the website, you can actually see some of the pictures that were submitted by the children in advance. I say children, they're young people really as well, as youngsters. But the theme was one day, and the interpretations have been, I think, very inspirational, very very original, and very well thought out.
Yes, I mean, I was looking again at the resources that the Holocaust Memorial Day website provide, and there's a very, very informative and interesting section on what happened to disabled people. But there's also, and I think this is a relatively new resource, there's an Englishman. I say this because his name is Birger Kanikanian. Kanikanian, thank you. And he was born in England in 1968. And he's made a film about Action 44, which was the Nazi program, which basically kind of murdered as many disabled people as they could find. So that's a really interesting story that is on the website. The section about disabled people, again, we're putting in a direct link, but it's within a section on Nazi persecution that also tells you what happened to the Roma and Sinti people, Black people, Freemasons, LGBTQI plus people, non-Jewish Poles and Slavic peoples, Jehovah's Witnesses. You know, there was a whole group who were systematically targeted for persecution and murder. And just as we don't hear half enough about the disabled people who died, we also don't hear about the Roma people, the Sinti people, the Poles. So it's a really important website for, I think, all of us to just engage with. It's very, very easily written. It's beautifully presented. It's very accessible. So, yeah, I mean, it's estimated that close to 250,000 disabled people died in this way. I think, to give it some context, more than that number have now died of COVID in care homes across the UK and Europe, which is a very sobering thought. And although we will be moving on to less sobering thoughts in a moment, it does seem to me that there's still this direct link between not really valuing disabled people, not seeing disabled people as equally important. I mean, you're nodding there, Robin. Did you want to add something?
I mean, I just in total agreement is that, you know, we see it all the time in everyday lives, from you know, new shops opening without ramps when they could possibly have them, right through to, you know, disability hate crime. And it's kind of recognizing that it's not just these big things that happen, it's actually the everyday stuff that kind of grind you down, or grind, you know, sections of a community down. But you know, that's why we fight back. That's why we are celebrating who we are, not just, as you said, commemorating those who've passed.
Yes, I mean, I was looking at a piece in the Daily Mail earlier, and it said it's Freedom from Masks Day. And I thought, well, that's actually the freedom to infect and kill people. Again, if we were valuing disabled people in the way that we should be, there would be no question, you know, and everybody would be doing their very, very best to protect disabled people, to protect older people. So I think we really need to look at what's going on still as a result of the Holocaust, those echoes of the Holocaust, and indeed the ideas that led to the Holocaust, because eugenics started in America, it didn't start in Europe, and the sort of forced sterilization programs that the Nazis adopted, again, had started in America. So it's very easy to sort of demonize one nation, but of course, you know, the truth is much, much more complicated. If anybody's listening and they fancy going on the live chat and just tell me that they can hear everybody okay, or if one of us is too loud or too quiet, that would be very much appreciated. Before we move on and look at some poems from the Together Pop-Up Poetry Club, which Julie will tell us more about, I'm going to finish this section with a poem that I wrote last year at the launch of this year's theme. And this year's theme for Holocaust Memorial Day is One Day. And the idea is you can interpret that in all sorts of different ways. You can look at that one day where everything changed for some of those people. And that might be a point where their lives became very difficult or died, or it might be a point where they survived. Because again, you know, it's so important that we listen to survivors. But this is my interpretation of this year's Holocaust Memorial Day theme, One Day. One day, no one will go to sleep cold or hungry. One day, everyone will sleep safely in a bed of their own. One day, everyone will have access to clean water. One day, access to healthcare will depend only on need. One day, access to education will depend only on ability. One day, everyone will be free to practice their faith. One day, everyone will be free to express themselves. One day, everyone will be free to love who they want. One day, everyone will respect and value each other. One day we will see one of us, not one of them. One day there will be no more hate and violence. One day generosity will become stronger than greed. One day trust will triumph over fear. One day everyone will put down their weapons. One day the planet will begin to heal. Today we are one day closer. Thank you. And thank you, Renee, who says the sound is fine. So, did anybody want to have a final word?
No, I
I
think
think
you've
it's
said it all.
important to. Sorry, I'm so sorry, Robin. I beg your pardon. I was going to say I think it's important to recognise about the persecution of minorities or people who are seen as different from the ruling groups in whatever country they are. And that's recognised obviously in the Memorial Day website. But I think we need to recognise that there is a question over Chinese respect for human rights. And I think, as we go in to celebrate the various sports events that take part in the Olympics and the Paralympics of the winter sports in Beijing, then I think it's important to recognise that there is a massive human rights issue going on behind the scenes as well.
Yes, and indeed in many other contexts too. So we're going to move on to the poems from the Pop-Up Poetry Club, which was quite a small gathering this week. The Pop-Up Poetry Club meets on a Wednesday morning from 10:30 to 12 by phone. We call you and pay the costs. You can also find this week's theme on our website under the highlights and links for Together 2012 TV. And that highlights and links page will also have all of the poems, photographs, videos, and links from today's show and goes live about 4 o'clock on Thursdays. So, Julie, would you like to start with your poem?
Yes. Do you want to say something about how the poetry club works?
No.
Okay. So this week's theme was ice and snowflakes, and as Ju said, we had a small grouping. I found it difficult to fulfill the brief, so to speak. So mine is slightly off mark, but bear with me. And then came ice and snow. Grey, dark, bleak skies, clouds sitting heavy, crowding in on the days, gardens damp, dark, empty of all but the relics of last season, leaves brown, blackened with the rust of decay, lie heavy on the ground. An unexpected splash of pink petals sits balanced on a leafless twig. The bush, now stark in winter gloom, resting, waiting for the wakening. Cloud breaking, the temperature drops low in the glass. Frost starts to form, then silent in the night, the snow falls, soft, muffling the nocturnal sounds. A fox pauses, stopping mid-stride, paw raised as it stares around before moving on. Come the dawn, a shaft of light catches the jewel of ice caught on a brave pink petal. Petrified in a final act of beauty, the day is made brighter with this diamond sparkle.
Thank you, Julie. What have you got for us next from the West Midlands?
I've got one by Crystal Peasy, entitled Snowflakes. I love snowflakes when I walk and I hear sounds. Snowflakes lie on the top of the trees. It's like crystals and shining. When you pick up snowflakes, it can melt in your hand. When the snowflakes come down, they are very tiny. And when you are walking under the snowflakes, it can cover you with white snowflakes.
Thank you for that, Crystal, and thank you, Tracy. This is Alison Marchant. Alison is our club's programme leader and also an international installation artist in her own right, and this is Ice and Snowflakes. Outside, the puddles are frozen over like slippery, cracked glass. Snowflakes close up in a symmetry of tiny, spiky designs. Just look at them as they land on you in a flurry through the chilly air just before they melt. The sun is trying to peep out, but doesn't know how. Even on sunny days, it is still winter. Snowflakes have crystallized into fluffs of snow, a cluster of cold in the damp air. Just breathe on them and watch them as they melt into the fabric of your coat. The small droplet of water tumbles to the ground like a tear, only to freeze over into ice again and become one of many puddles. I think our London poems are reflecting a winter that's actually probably quite different to the West Midlands, where we actually haven't had snow at all, and you've had it on multiple occasions, haven't you?
Yeah, although not this side of the new year. It's actually really mild here today.
Well, that's always good. So I think you've got one last poem, Robin.
I do, and this is from Glory Sengo, Ice and Snowflakes. When I was walking on the snow, it was a foggy day, and I saw a snowflake, and I stepped on it. I just wondered, where was the bear? And I thought it was behind me. Then I was in the reindeer's house with Rudolph and his parents. I was waking up in the morning, cleaning the reindeers, so that we can go outside in the daytime while there's snow outside. So we tried to be careful and sing a song with the other reindeers. Then we met the keeper, and I was going to sit down with them, and I went to Santa's toy factory in the village. Then we were singing them songs when I was in America. I saw the northern lights. We met the other reindeers, where there was snowflakes and ice. Then I went into the sun and met the elf. Then we went to Stormella's bridge. Then we went to the village and Santa's factory.
I really like that. Thank you, Glory, and thank you, Robin. But there was this point where you go from kind of, oh, was that a bear, to suddenly this Christmas fantasy. And at that point, I think, is this the point where in real life the kind of narrator has been borne off by the bear and is having this fantasy about Father Christmas is being dragged into the cage? But that's just me. You could also see it as, oh, there was a lovely polar bear who came and introduced me to Santa. But I like that, Glory, very much, but particularly because of the ambiguity and the kind of slight sense of menace that therefore hangs over the whole trip to Santa. But now we're going to have a look at some work from the Art Club. The Art Club runs a Make and Natter session on a Tuesday from 11 to 12 and a still life session on a Friday from 11 to 12. And today we're going to have a look at last Friday's Art Club. As always, we're going to pop the still life up for Robin to audio describe unseen. I don't think you'll need to take very long with this today, Robin.
We have a lovely little, very fluffy teddy bear. I would have described it as a kind of very pale lilac to grey, with a kind of grey and greyy bow round its neck.
So this first painting is by Crystal Peasy, and Crystal's really, well, I don't know what else you could have done, but gone to town with the brown paint. I particularly like the way that there's this sense of the bottom feet getting bigger because of that perspective where that was coming closer to the camera. And that perspective can get a little bit exaggerated on the still lifes. The way Alison creates them is she or another team member will set them up and photograph them, and then she shares them on Zoom with some audio description and some mindfulness so that people can really get to grips with the image. But she can also WhatsApp, email, or text you the image, whatever's easiest. So well done, Crystal. So this one is by Dwayne Bryan and is a beautiful representation, I think possibly in pastel. And again, Dwayne has really picked up that sort of sense of the feet coming towards you and being seen bigger. That's lovely, Dwayne. Now, this is by Glory Sengo, who's used mostly yellow felt tip with a grey felt tip, or indeed it could be pencil, but I think it's felt tip for the scarf. I really like this. It's got a completely different sense of shape and movement, and that's what we always say about the still lifes. You know, it's just everybody's is so different. And of course, all you really need is just a biro and a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be in colour. So finally, this is by Sophia, and Sophia's used felt tip again, and Sophia's got a really, really lovely sense of the texture of the fur, and is also very much focused in on the nose, which is lovely. So again, thank you for that, Sophia. If anybody wants to see these again, they will be on the highlights and links page. So now we're going to move on to one of our regular spots, joining in with Tracy as Tracy shows us an inclusive, accessible craft based on things we can recycle at home. And for regular viewers, as regular viewers will know, this month Tracy is helping us to make an entire bouquet of paper flowers using different techniques. So I'm going to start by popping this up on the screen, Tracy.
Hi. So yes, this month I said I was going to work with flowers and paper flowers. So this is just a collection of some pretty papers that I've got at home, but this could equally be done with old magazines or cereal packets or, you know, whatever you've got. What I've done, it's a very simple way of making the flower, is you get your square, you fold it in half, then you fold it in half again, and then you do a third fold, and then with a little tiny triangle. Then you can, I mean, all these will be on our website for you to have a look at. But what I've made there is the petal shape, and the way I've done that is I've just used the length of my thumb, held the paper and drawed around it with a pencil and cut it out. So this is a picture that shows you the steps that I've taken. So you've got the small triangle, the cut out petal, and then when you open the petal up, these are your flowers. What I'm showing you here is I've cut out one of the petals, and you cut that out so that when you reach together and stick the two petals together, it gives you your flower shape. And there again, I'm just showing you, you can cut out more than one petal and it will make the flowers smaller. And that's me just demonstrating how you stick it together. So you stick the two petals that where you've cut the petal out, you then stick the two petals that are left together. And then I've just used a pencil to curve the edges of the paper to make it more flower shaped. This is a flower, so I've got all my petals and now I'm just creating different types of flowers. So I've got a straw, or again we could use that rolling technique that I've used a lot, which is also on our site, to glue the top of the flower onto the straw. And then we've got a selection of flowers. So I've got the one we just looked at on the pink straw. There's one on a purple straw where I've simply snipped the bottom of the petals and just slid them onto the straw. So that creates a bit of movement. And then the third one, which is in lots of blues, again, same shape, same petals, just squashed a little bit at the end so that they stick onto the straw. And then, as you can see at the end, we've got our bouquet of flowers, and that includes some of the flowers that I've been making over the last couple of weeks.
That's really lovely, Tracy. And I really like the way that you were able to use the petals that you cut out further down the stem as the leaves.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm still working on my bouquet, but it's such, well, again, it's another really easy technique that I wouldn't have thought of. I never realised that you could make that kind of symmetrical shape from doing those folds. And I wouldn't have thought of just curling the petals out again either, but it just makes so much difference, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
So for anybody out there who wants to make their nearest and dearest a bouquet of flowers for Valentine's Day, yes, Tracy seems to have done all the work in your household, Robin.
I believe it is shared work.
So actually, Ju, just a very quick one. So we are at the end of the month now. We'll be moving into February when we come back next week. I am looking for a project for the whole of February. So I've got my own ideas that if anyone would like to send us a quick message about anything they'd like me to look at for the whole month, then I'd be happy to do that as well. Painting techniques, making things out of old clothes, whatever people feel like.
Yeah, and if you've got ideas to share, we would love to hear them too. There's lots more joining from home activities on our website. Mostly you don't need enough data to watch the videos. Everything has got pictures and instructions. If you just go to www.together2012.org.uk, click on the main join in from home menu. As part of that, you'll see all the previous activities from Tracy and also from Sterre. And we're going to have a look now at a short video from Sterre where she shows us what she's been up to that we can join in with this week.
Hi, I'm Sterre, and I made a monster to give me food to the birds. Bye.
Thank you very much, Sterre. And just to give a bit of audio description, Sterre had two ideas that I thought were really interesting for feeding the birds. And the first was just simply soaking the inside of a toilet roll holder in the seeds. So you'd got a wet toilet roll holder. I think that's what happened, isn't it, Tracy? And it soaked up all the seeds. And then you just put a piece of string through to hang it up. I was watching something on Winter Watch last night, which we recommended, as a sort of show to keep watching last week, and they were talking about the need to keep cleaning bird feeders. So if you are hanging up just the seeds and then letting the cardboard rot away, that can be a really, really hygienic way of feeding birds if you're not able to clean your own feeder weekly. But the other feeder that Sterre made was she used a really giant 4-litre carton of milk, cut out the centre so that the seed could go in, put a twig through the bottom and put some string to hang it up. But she also used the top of that milk and a previous milk top to make eyes so that it did look a bit monstrous. Trying to keep some birds away from bird feeders because you want to prioritise others, then I don't know, maybe having a scary figure also works. What do you think, Julie?
I doubt it because intruder birds tend to be very determined.
Well, no. And if you go to the Join In with Tracy section, there is another bird feeder design there, but also a bird bath, which I think is a great thing to have. Renault is saying, I can't have a bird feeder because of local cats and my Springer Spaniel, but Sterre's idea is brilliant. Yes, we kind of know about not having bird feeders because of dogs too. But in the old days, I actually used to lean out of the loft window and hang a bird feeder on the chimney. I don't recommend that for anybody unless it's safe. But sometimes there are places you can put bird feeders that are away from dogs and cats. So it's always worth thinking about. So we're halfway through the show. If you're watching this live, we're running about 5 minutes late due to technical problems earlier. And it's time for Clockwork Paralympics. So to join in from home, you have to decide which Clockwork Winter Paralympics you want to support on the right hand side of the screen or the left. Whichever side Robin chooses is bound to win. But let's introduce your teddy bear, Robin.
Oh well, and just to let you know, your sound's going in and out a little bit. I'm not sure why. It might just be the internet. So in fact, we have uh, the return of PJ the Pajama Ted yet again. He's told me that he's going to continue competing till he doesn't win. At that point, he's going to retire. And he is saying that he's going to take the right side of the screen for Birmingham today.
Right, well, we have Tony the teddy again. He's a sort of nautical teddy, so he's got a sailor's hat, he's got a little blue Guernsey and a red and white spotted bow tie, although I'm not quite sure why he'd be sailing wearing a bow tie, but well, maybe some people do. Tony is increasingly dejected because we never get to win, even though it's a game of chance, and I've set the videos up. But I'm going to pop the video on and get Robin in due course to do some audio description and commentary.
And here we are again at our winter stadium, looking for the ice sprint winner of our very athletic snow people. So we're on the right hand side of the screen. Still not sure if there's a slope on it or not, if it's just a camera angle. Oh dear. Well, I think Tony is going to be very, very happy after today's event, because the Birmingham Commonwealth, although having lasted longer, has gone in completely the wrong direction. So congratulations to Tony and the London 2012 team for a fantastic victory, and well deserved. You're muted.
If you mean waited long enough, then it is a fantastic victory. But yes, no, I mean, I think it was the camera angle in the slope, because there's no way that your snowman could have been going uphill. But all I can say is that it's difficult propping a phone up to more difficult than I ever would have imagined before the pandemic to be recording these Clockwork Toys. But yeah, Tony's very happy. We don't have medals like you Paralympians, but we do have our single gold plastic London 2012 Mayor's Medal from Newham, and Tony is more than happy with it. So, PJ, I'm afraid we won't be seeing you again. For anybody who was shocked and horrified by what Robin just did in terms of throwing PJ, don't worry, PJ will be rescued, brushed off.
He jumped.
Well, I'm sure he'll be counselled and brushed off after the show. So we're going to have a look at the week ahead. And before we come on to individual recommendations, I'm just going to flag up 3 links that we'll be putting up on the highlights and links page. The first is to the website section about disabled people, which we've already mentioned earlier in the show. And the second, as we've said, is tonight's live stream. But the third is a lecture next Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m, which is also commemorating and celebrating LGBT History Month. So this is about queer Holocaust history, and it's a lecture by Hannah Havkova, and she explores the importance of same-sex desire amongst Holocaust victims in the Shoah. She explores love, sexual barter, as well as sexual violence, and examines how it came to be that this history remains carrying a stigma even in 2022. So I thought that looked very relevant on all sorts of levels. And of course, in next week's show, we will be talking about LGBT plus History Month some more, and featuring some of the LGBT plus disabled performers during the month too, I believe. But in the meantime, oh, sorry, just picked up another message from Renee. Thank you for that. Renee reassures us that they still can hear us out there despite all of the gremlins. So before I move on to something else, let's have some recommendations from the West Midlands.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll go back to what my dressed up to go out to stay in. to celebrate the launch of an album called Never Forget by Lee Oscar. I'm afraid it doesn't come free. I At the moment, it is orderable via the website that is linked in to the highlights page. I'm assuming that come release date tomorrow, so it's officially released tomorrow. It will then be available on streaming services. Um, but it's an artist who's made a whole album. But the point of it is that he comes from a Jewish family, and this latest album is telling the story of his mother and her sisters' experiences of the Holocaust and being moved around, having to move from different country to different country, finally ending up in America. Um, and it's really interesting because actually he's a really really famous musician. Um, he was kind of one of the lead writers in a band called War, which was they were around, admittedly, in the 70s. But there's a song called Low Rider which you can hear played many many times. You go out and du-du-du-du-du-du-du, du-du-du-du-du. If you didn't know who it was, that riff is like just completely world famous. But it just I managed to actually find a link to a bit of a demo of it, and it's really contemplative, really takes you to where you want to be, but without making you feel sad. It's kind of both got that. I guess he's an amazing artist, and it's got all that you want in there. The sadness, but the celebration, the musicality, but with stark references in it. And if you do choose to buy it, there's a really there's a special version which has got his own artwork as well, because he's done a lot of his own Holocaust art.
Thanks for that, Robin. Now we've got about 3 minutes to get through the rest, so I'm going to ask you to be concise from now on. Tracy, do you have something for us?
I do. The first thing that I've got is it's by Open Theatre, and it's the first of its kind. It's on Monday the 31st on YouTube, and it's free. And it's a sitcom with two guys, and their carer, and it explores neurodiversity and disability. And I'm really looking forward to watching it. Actually, really excited to see it.
It sounds brilliant. I hadn't heard about that at all. Julie, what have you got for us?
Firstly, the poetry theme for next week is Stormy Skies. I've got two BBC recommendations which can be found on iPlayer. One is the start of the curling on Wednesday, the 2nd at 12 p.m. And the ceremony will be shown on Friday, but there's a whole listings of what the programmes will be. Also, the repair shop J Blades made a film last night about learning to read at 51. And if you go to the BBC website, there's all sorts of resources about adult learning.
Yeah, I thought that was great. I mean, and I thought it proved that, whatever your coping strategies and however old you are, there's still, it's still possible to read, and it just opens up so many things. And if anybody's interested in learning to read, you don't have to be able to read and write to come to our poetry group. We can always find you a scribe, so bear that in mind. I'm just going to pull out, let me have a look at our time schedule one, which is next Wednesday, free online at 7:30. There are two very interesting poets, Raina Giajigan and Phil Vernon, who are being introduced by the poet Nigel Kent. All of these poets are published by Hedgehog Poetry Press, which I think has got a wonderful name. Raina's poetry collection is called The Stone's Sleep, and Phil Vernon's is Watching the Moon Landing. And in fact, as it happens, Phil's previous collection responded to the Holocaust. So I think he's a very interesting poet in a number of ways to be looking at. What else is unmissable from the West Midlands perspective?
Well, there's a very quickly. There's a thing on tonight called Remote Access with Abby Palmer. It's at 5:30. Link from Eventbrite. It's all about art in rural places, And Abby's art explores the themes of disability, access, intimacy, and queer culture. So that's tonight at 7:30. Would need to be booked. And then lastly, just leading into what we're going to finish with, there will be a link to artwork by Tolek Winner to follow up.
Brilliant. There's a couple that I'm just going to say all of the details will be on the website highlights and links page on Monday from 6:30 to 10:30. There's a group called Out Loud, which is actors and Shakespeare enthusiasts reading their way through different Shakespeare plays with free scripts available. They're doing 12th night. If you're an actor and a disabled actor, it's very hard to get experience, but I think this kind of group is a great way of just being able to connect with professional actors, enjoy yourself with other actors in a sort of very unpressured environment, learn a bit more about acting Shakespeare. Yeah, I just think it's a great place to be networking, whether you've got professional experience or not. And there's a lovely, very meditative live streamed artist performance from the States on Sunday from 9 to 10. They're about 8 hours behind us. I think they're on Pacific time. And it's a preview of Shanique Smith's Breathing Room Moonmarked Journey, which is a film meditation on breath, indigo, and blue as a colour that's long inspired her practice. And I just thought that sounded very, very gentle. Julie, did you have anything else in about 10 seconds?
Go back to the Great Pottery Throwdown on Sunday night at 7:45. It's going to be gardenware this week. I'm very excited.
This is where we've got to, 2 years into the pandemic. We're just getting so excited about gardenware on a Sunday. But in all seriousness, it's a very, very inspiring show. And if you'd like to do some pottery at home, then join in with Tracy's section on how to do salt dough pastry. So, yes, that's almost it for today, apart from, of course, our And Finally section, which I think Robin is pretty much introducing on film. But as always, Robin has done a wonderful interview for us about an artist that we'd all like to know more about. Next week, we're back. Like you say, it's LGBT plus History Month, so expect some themed things. We'd love to know what you're doing. If you're writing poems or using pictures on the website to do still lives, we'd love to see them. We'd love to see your work anyway. If you're an artist with an ongoing project, tell us all about it. We're about to shake off the January blues and really start looking forward to the year ahead. So if you've got something coming up, we want to know, we want to tell other people. So do that. Apart from that, it's goodbye from East London. Our clubs continue tomorrow with Still Life, so just drop us an email, info@together2012.org.uk if you'd like to join in, or just check out the details on our website. West Midlands, over to you.
Yeah, I'm just going to say bye from the West Midlands. Don't forget, if you've got any ideas of things you'd like me to do for February, just let us know, and I'll see you next week.
Which leaves me just to introduce today's interview. Pretty much speaks for itself, but Tolek Winner is an artist of great note, and Holocaust Day, Memorial Day, is extremely important to him as well, so he's the perfect guest for today. This afternoon, we are meeting Tolek Winner. Tolek is a sculptor and artist with a very colourful and varied history. I think it's probably best, Tolek, if I ask you to introduce yourself and just give us a bit of your background.
Well, my name is Tolek Winner. I'm a sculptor, artist, and I was born in the former USSR, left Russia in 1974, and my parents immigrated to Israel in 74. I lived there for 6 years. My British-born wife, I met her on the kibbutz, and we're here since 1980. So I've been here for 42 years.
So we now know that you're a sculptor and an artist. I understand that you have done work of all shapes and sizes. Kind of what's the smallest and what's the biggest?
Oh, the smallest probably about a couple of inches. And the biggest, probably about 3 meters, 12, 13 feet.
The 12-foot tall piece, is that the one called People, Eternal Love?
It actually stands at 3 meters because it's got 1.5 meter plinth. So it's 1.5 meter piece. It's made of steel, and they've had it there for, I think, 17 years. The other installation, they're still trying to raise funds to fit it in Peterborough University. It's literally a square where people can sit and have their sandwiches, and it's abstract human figures, 25 of them, made of steel, and it's like chessboard, a shape of a chessboard. In fact, I've had an email today from a lady trying to raise funds to get this installed, because it's been in storage for, I think, 10, 12, maybe 15 years. Hopefully they'll raise the money and they'll be able to install it for the college students.
And this is at Peterborough Sculpture Park?
Yes, it's a Peterborough Sculpture Trust at the entrance. It's literally a few meters away from Anthony Gormley's and Anthony Cairo's sculpture.
What inspires your work?
First of all, my life. First of all, is because a lot of it is autobiographical. And second of all, humanity. What fascinates me, it's philosophy, human condition, the universe. What is our purpose here? What are we doing? Where we're going? And what is our past, basically? And that's what drives me, to tell a story. And that's what sculpture, art is about, is you tell a story. And you can tell a story through sculpture, paintings, through music, through any form of art, even down to sports. It can be an art form.
Are there any pieces that you've created that you would describe are as particularly focused on anti-Semitism?
Yes, some of it. Very much so. Yeah. Well, specifically the sculptures that I've emailed you, that gives a definition of not just the Holocaust, is human genocides overall. And obviously Holocaust, it's something is very personal because I've lost a lot of members of my family. But there isn't a Jewish family who hasn't lost. And especially my grandmother was left with 4 children at the age of 24 when she's lost her husband, shot down by a German plane. He was fighting for the Russian army. So she lost her, not just her husband, in the same way she lost her brothers as well. So there isn't a family who hasn't lost. That pains me. And that's, and then it gives me another reminder of other genocides like Khmer Rouge, killing fields, and many, many other genocides through human suffering and through human generations. And sometimes I ask myself, is he worth saving humanity? I say yes. I answer myself, yes, of course he is. Is worth saving every living creature on the planet, because every single one of us have a purpose, and every single one of us are born artists without exception. No matter who they are, first and foremost, we are born artists. We can all draw, we can all do things that connect it to art, but because without art, we've got no life, we've got no progress.
What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put up a couple of shots that you've sent me that are actually of the one of the images that's behind you, and I'd like you to kind of just take us through what the image represents and a little bit about how it was made. Okay, so literally take us through what's this called, and what does it mean, and how did you make it?
Wow, you chose a very complex piece because it took me literally almost a month to make. It's a life-size pear, as you can see. It's called Forbidden Fruit, and I've used 4 different materials. I've used bronze, copper, steel, and aluminium. I literally melted everything in one mold, mixed them up. Then once I've got the actual solid bar, then from that solid bar, I used a water jet machine from my drawing. I cut out the shape of the pear. This is all one piece. This is no separation here. Everything was made from one solid piece. Use the water jet to cut out the form. Then I would take it to my engineer. He would literally spend days polishing first into form, because when I take it from the water jet, it's a rough form. It's like a rough diamond, basically. It's a rough cut. So that rough cut becomes a smooth cut through a lot of perseverance. Sometimes my engineer used a lathe machine to basically to start it off, because by hand to polish so much metal, it's a lot of work. And then once it got that form, then it re-polishes again with different grades of sandpaper to perfection. In some cases, obviously, like mirror polish. In this case, is satin finish. And that piece, obviously, it's very, very close to my heart. If you look beneath that piece, there is a broken down Star of David. That's signed by me, and you can see that was the form that I put into the mold before I poured the aluminium. So once the aluminium was poured into that shape, it was literally a long shape in the round mold. We poured the aluminium, and once it was cut into that cylindrical form, you have the projection of the star right up to the top of the pear. That gives you that the star gets diluted and disappears into a tip of the pear. And obviously, a human skull going through the pear, that doesn't just mean death. That means a life cycle, basically. And it's very close to me, because it's a very personal piece of sculpture.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, for sharing what it all means. As ever, time is short. You obviously had life-changing moments that you chose to be the focus for becoming an artist. Anyone else out there who's thinking, I'd really love to be an artist, but I don't know, or can I do it? Are there any reasons why I shouldn't? What would you say to those people?
I say to them, just go ahead and do it. Make those mistakes. And if you haven't made mistakes, you haven't done nothing. So go and do it, and you can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I've lectured at UCL University to art students to say, look at me. I can barely walk. I can barely get out of bed, but I can do my art because that's what keeps me alive. That's what gives me a reason to live, and to do something not just for me, to do for other people as well. So I can be an inspiration to other people, to give them hope, to give them desire to live and carry on, and not to give up. And to me, that's important. And for my children and for my grandchildren, to me, it's important.
Well, that is a fantastic message, Tolek. So on behalf of Together, thank you so much for agreeing to talk with me today. And I wish you luck with everything that you're planning.
Thank you very much, Robin. I really appreciate that. And best wishes to you and your family.